Okay, so then let's call this meeting to order. Mr. Finley, what time do you have? I have 6:03.
I have 6:02, but we can say 6:03.
Either one's fine. Let's say 6:02. That's not just.
Sorry, Delphino, I couldn't hear what you said.
Yeah, sorry. Let's say 6:02. Meeting to order. Take attendance, Ms. Sanchez.
Can do. Okay, so it's like our administrator is Mr. Finley. Are you present, Mr. Finley? Looks like he is. And then Rachel,
Here.
Genevieve Hokinson. Don't think so. Mr. Oseguera,
Here.
myself, John Kearney. Absent. Jennifer Greb. Nope, Grobe. That's Jennifer Hamilton.
Here.
Awesome. And Brett McIntosh. Not. And Delfino Murillo.
I am here.
Okay. And we have 6.
Awesome. Do we have any guests, any parents or other staff that wants to be included in our list here? I believe you can just unmute yourself and say hello. I'm hearing your name.
Hi, this is Miss Marilyn. I'm on the info at Reach Royals account with the beautiful crest on there.
It is beautiful. And it looks like we have Evelyn Ruiz is here.
Hi, everyone. My name is Evelyn Ruiz. I'm the parent of Jonathan, her second grader.
Great. Welcome, Evelyn. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
And we also have Dr. Renty here. And just saw someone else come in. Gabriela Estrada is here. Welcome, Gabriela. Oops. I get back on here. There we go. I see that we have some people who have just made it in, like Hokinson and Jennifer Grob. Should I just add them in for present now?
Yes, I would say so.
Okay.
We're still in that step.
Okay, great.
Okay. Still in that step.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so of the members here today, did everybody get a chance to review the agenda? And if we can have a motion to approve it, or are there any comments we want to make on it before we do?
This is Miss Marilyn. I do have a change to the agenda. Miss Susie was set to present on the school-wide plan, but she is out ill. So we're hoping to have the presentation the following meeting.
Okay, thanks, Marilyn. That sounds good. That being said, can I have a motion to approve it?
I motion to approve it.
Oh, I second.
Ms. Sanchez, did you catch those? Perfect. Thank you.
Okay,
Okay, I'm sorry.
sorry,
Sanchez, do you want
ask for the vote. I can't remember the words that I'm supposed to say. Sorry.
to just take roll and say how do you
Okay.
vote?
All right, so let's go through. Mr. Finley,
Present. Aye.
okay, thank you. Rachel,
Aye.
Genevieve,
Aye.
Alvin,
Aye.
me, I think John is not here. And Jennifer G. Grubb.
Aye.
There we go. Jennifer Hamilton
Aye.
and Brett McIntosh. I believe she hasn't made it in yet. Okay, so she's absent. And oops, Delfino.
I vote aye, please.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so the motion carries. Under comments, Ms. Sanchez, or it says comments and notes, can you just mark that Ms. Navarro will be presenting at our next meeting?
Got it.
Okay, sorry, we're like juggling kids and things here. Let's see. Okay, is there any of our guests or public members that would like to address the board in any which way? Okay, I will take that as a no. So then our first presentation by Ms. Finley.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we can.
So we're going to go through the academic presentation for the most recent STAR test that our students took, which was at the beginning of the school year, which helps us determine where we should go with regards to instruction as we start the school year. We call it the floor level data. It tells us where the students are at the beginning of the year, and we are just about ready to do another STAR assessment next week to see the students' growth. So we'd be more than happy to share that data with you when we meet again next time. Next slide, Marilyn. So as you know, we take the STAR assessment, we do early literacy for kindergarten, and we do the STAR math assessment and the STAR reading assessment for grades 1 through 6. The early literacy assessment for kindergarten, it covers both math and ELA. Next slide. We have 4 testing windows for the entire school year. We have one in August, one in November, one in February/March, and then February, early March, and one in June. We just completed the assessment in August, early September, and we're about to complete one now in November. So the results today will reflect the data we received at the end of August, early September. Next slide. These are the bands that we use to determine whether our students are proficient or not. We look at levels 3 and levels 4 to show proficiency. So once students are at a level 3 and above, they are proficient. If they are at a level 2, it means that we need a little bit of intervention to get them to proficient. And if they are at a level 1, it means that we have a lot of work to do to get them where they need to be at grade level. Next slide. So here's the data for our kindergarten early literacy assessment for our August round. We see that we have 3 teachers. Mrs. Gill, her students scored a proficiency rate of 67%. Ms. Squad, her students scored a proficiency rate of 71%. And Ms. Dominguez, her students scored a proficiency rate of 58%. So all this is telling you is that 67, 71, and 58% of the students in each of the 3 classes were proficient on the assessment that they took. So we are happy to see that 2 of the 3 classes average a proficiency of 65% and more. And we are looking forward to see the growth that they will make in this upcoming round of assessment. Next slide. We have listed the entire school here for the reading assessment, starting with 1st grade, going all the way to 6th grade. Just like kindergarten, we are showing the level of proficiency or the proficiency percentage for reading for every single teacher in the school. The teachers that have the gold star on their bar shows that their class have had a proficiency rate of 60% and over. So we see 2 1st grade classes, we see 1 2nd grade class, we see a 3rd grade class, we see a 4th grade class, we see 2 5th and 1 6th grade hitting that 60% proficiency in ELA. And we are hoping that for the next round of assessment, at least all of our classes could meet that 60% proficiency average in ELA. So I'm just going to leave it up for a few more seconds so you can look across and see a little bit deeply how each class performed in ELA. All right, next slide. We have now broken down the data by grade. So we showed you each individual class. Now we're going to show you each grade. So when we combine the percentage proficient together for each grade, this is the average that we came up with. So we see 1st grade overall as a grade, they have a 63% proficiency rate in ELA. 2nd grade has a 55, 3rd grade has 51, 4th has 54, 5th has 63, and 6th has 55. So 2 of our grade levels are performing at a proficiency average of 60% and more, and we are happy to see that. And we're also proud to see that the rest of the grade levels are somewhat within 5 or less average proficiency points within each other. So they're kind of close by, and we are hoping that it continues. And as they grow together, pushing that proficiency higher, and not having any one of the grades being like an outlier where everybody else is in the 60s and 70s. And we have one particular grade stuck at the 50s or so. So we're happy to see that the percentages are somewhat in the same range as a whole school. So that's ELA. We're going to move on now to math. Key takeaways I might have mentioned before. Overall, 5 of 18 classes have 60% or more students proficient. As a school, we'll probably aim to have at least 10 of those classes at a 60% or more proficient in our next assessment. We are proud to share that 2 of the 3 classes in 1st and 2nd grades have a 60% or more proficient. And then we have the 1st and the 5th grades as a whole. They have a 60% proficiency rate. And overall, across all grades, like I said, the percentage is proficient and not too far from each other. One area for growth for us is in the 3rd grade. We realized that 2 of the 3 classes in 3rd grade, they have less than 50% students proficient in ELA. So the coaches the instructional coach and myself have been working closely with third grade to strengthen that ELA gap that we have seen from the first assessment. So we're looking to see improvement as we take the next assessment in the next couple of days. So let's move on to math. Okay, so here's the beginning of the year data for math. As you know, math gets more challenging for the students as they pass the third grade. So we are very much used to seeing that dip as we go from third to fourth grade. So you can see from the first grade, teachers start off in the 70s. We have 70% averages as well in second grade. And then it starts to go down. But we are working with our teachers to make sure that we do the best that we can to see that growth in math. We see that 2 of the first grade classes are at 70 and above. We see that 2 of the second grade classes are at 70 and above as well. And we have 1 third grade class that is over 60%. So we're happy to see those 5 classes over 60%. And again, we are hoping to have at least 10 classes at that 60% average proficiency rate in this next assessment. So take a closer look at each class. So we can now move on to the grade averages. So we see in first grade, they had an overall average of 65% proficient in math. We see in second grade a 67% proficient in math as well. Third grade had 49, fourth 32, fifth 17, and sixth 21. So we see that first and second grade, they're somewhat close to each other. Both of them having over 60% of their students proficient in math on the STAR assessment. All right, next slide. So our key takeaways for math after that round of assessment was that we have 5 of 18 classes that have 60% or more students proficient again in math. We have 2 of the 3 classes in first and second with 70% or more in math as a proficiency rate. And first and second, again, having over 60% proficient. And we know that our grades 3 through 6 have less than 50% students proficient. And we continue to work closely with our students and our teachers in small groups to push our math results. Next slide. So here you have a comparison by grade, math versus ELA. So it shows you clearly how the grades are performing. We can see in first grade, they are performing relatively close to each other with regards to math and ELA. There's not too much of a gap with regards to the percentage proficient. In second grade, we see that they are performing better in math. In third grade, they're somewhat close again with regards to their overall proficiency levels in both math and ELA. In fourth grade, we see that fourth grade is performing better in ELA. In fifth grade, the same. And in sixth grade, the same as well. So it shows you math versus ELA across the grades. And our goal by the end of the year is to have the bars close to each other where students are performing as well or as equally as they are in math and ELA or ELA versus math. Next slide. And as a school right now, we had 57% of our students as a whole, our 600, and I think the latest number was 630 something. 57% of those students are proficient in ELA and 49% of those students are proficient in math. And we are hoping that by the end of the school year, we walk away with at least 65% proficiency in both math and ELA. And that's just a basic goal. I'm sure we can do way better than that, but we want to see at least 65 in each subject area. So if we get 75, we're going to be really happy with that. And we are pushing for 75 and above. Next slide. So that wraps up the end of the data presentation. And like I said earlier, we are getting ready to take the second round of assessment next week. And that would be our November round. And we'll be able to compare the beginning of year data to our second round. And we'll be ready to share this data with you once we dive into the data and we do the analysis. We'll come back and let you know how students have performed compared to the beginning of the year. And I think that's all for me, Marilyn. We'll open up the floor now for questions with regards to what you have seen with our beginning of the year data in math and ELA.
Hi, this is Jennifer Grove. I have a question.
Uh-huh.
Do we have a comparison of what our assessment scores are compared to RUSD as a whole? Are we about equal? Is this across the board throughout RUSD, or is this, something? Our math scores I think are the ones that I'm really concerned with. Our ELA look really good, but as we get into fourth, fifth, and sixth grade math, are we across the board? Is that what we're seeing throughout schools, or do we have any comparison at all?
And I'll have Dr. Renti jump in, but what I can tell you overall, like we know it's a trend in the upper grades, like across the board. Our school, other districts, like third through sixth grade math, the scores are usually around the same. And I think even with us, we can outperform the district with our scores as well, even though we are still trying to get it up. So I think like overall math for all the schools in the district is usually around those percentages. I am not sure exactly which interim assessments like the Riverside Unified District does or the LA Unified District does, but I know we can probably look into seeing what assessments they take and see how they match up with regards to our STAR assessment data. And I'm not sure if Dr. Renti want to add anything else with regards to how we perform in comparison to the other districts, but we don't necessarily have their data. When we look at the SBAC scores, it's a struggle for everybody in the upper grades with regards to math generally.
Hi, Jennifer. Hi, everyone. It's Dr. Renti. So as Marcus has said, we don't have that data, and not all schools take the STAR assessment. And then, and we're not even sure how many schools have been able to give beginning of the year assessments or give assessments to the degree that we do. And so we use STAR data to track our students' progress. That's something that's a reach specific action that we take every year, even including the COVID year. So when we look at comparison to where the district is compared to where reach is, it would be an apples to oranges comparison since they don't use STAR anyway. Where we have that same analysis would be, on SBAC data, which is the assessment that the Smarter Balance assessment, which is the test that we will all be taking in the spring. And so we won't be able to have that comparison until then. With regards to the math data, as you said, everyone can see like we've done remarkably well in, ELA, considering the fact that we just came off of a pandemic. We do see that the math scores have plummeted, primarily because math, especially at Reach, is taught, hands-on and in context. And so what's very interesting to see is that this data that we're looking at is prior to us teaching the kids. So this is off of a pandemic. After a summer slide, now we're looking at like where are the kids before any instruction has been handed down. So when we start looking at and making decisions, it really starts in November when we start saying, okay, what have we taught? Are we making a difference? Are we closing the gap? And then that's when we start making, more serious, where they're all serious, but more strategic decisions around how we will teach based on the kids either responding to the way we're teaching or not. But with regards to the comparison across the districts, we don't have it. What STAR does though is a normed test. So there are people across other schools across the nation that's taking the test. And so it is giving us and showing us a comparison between other schools in reach. And that could be from here to New York, basically. And so what it's saying is that currently where our kids were at the beginning of the year, they like some of them were in the 30th percentile, say in math, or 20th percentile in comparison to, you know, where the average kids would be, or we would want them to be by the beginning of the year. So for now, and like you said, we are concerned with the math data, but we'll put a pin in it until the November scores come out and we can see whether or not we're making an impact. And then again, for STAR, when we really start comparing with the district compared to the district in California, how we're doing, we'll be looking at the SBAC data for that. And then we don't have those scores come back until the end of June. Last point, we do use the STAR data to help us track SBAC only because it seems to align pretty closely, and it's in the past has been a pretty decent predictor of where we could fall on the STAR. So if we were taking the STAR like at the beginning of the year, that's what our numbers could potentially look like. And then we'll see how we do going forward. I hope that answered some of your questions.
Yes, it kind of does. Just a quick follow-up. Are we using the same, everybody on the STAR assessment, do they use the same type of math? Know how to Common Core versus traditional math type thing. Are all of them using the same type of math? I don't even know.
I think I know what you're asking.
Okay.
Are you talking about the math curriculum? Yeah. Are you talking about just math curriculum period?
Math,
so like
period. Yeah. So
yeah.
Apples.
Yeah. So hard to tell, right? So about 48 states have adopted the Common Core standards. And so we're all teaching to Common Core. So
Okay.
of those states, some are not. And so, so California, yeah. So even though we use Singapore math curriculum, we're still teaching to the standards. And so there are certain standards that we need to meet. Does that make sense? And so what does that comparison look like? We just wanted some kind of a normed test. We don't want to just use our common assessments, which are aligned to our curriculum, because it doesn't tell us how our kids are doing in comparison to other kids, I think is what we're saying. But yeah, it's hard to tell what other states are doing across the board. We know about 48 states use Common Core. How many of those are taking the actual STAR assessment? It's hard to tell. But again, for us, the last couple of years, well, last year we didn't take SBAC, but I know the last time we took SBAC, which might have been 2018-19, we were tracking pretty closely in terms of like our STAR data versus our SBAC data. So we'll see how we do this year. Right now, we're not panicking over math, not just yet, but we'll see, you know, like usually around this time is when we can tell whether or not how we're teaching is making an impact. And what we look at is growth and then closing that gap. And so what will be really telling is when we come back in November or January with the data, you'll begin to see like the impact that the teachers are having in the classroom.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any other questions before we move on?
Yeah, I think Dr. Wente answered them, but I wanted to ask just to clarify. So this would reflect a little bit of that learning loss that happens over the summer, right? Because it's
Yes.
so early in the year that, yeah, okay, we're testing them on what they completed over last year. And then, I'm sorry, go ahead.
The kids came in and like within 2 weeks we tested them. So we really didn't teach anything. So how they perform is really what they learned from last year. And then like Dr. Wente had mentioned, like there's that summer slide and COVID and all those things. So like we are still even like proud to see after all of that, like they did still perform so well in ELA. Okay,
perfect. And then when we did the school average, right, when we just averaged all the students together, it didn't look so bad, right? It raised a little bit the math averages. And so I was just wondering, do we have more students in the lower grades, first, second, third, than we do in the like fourth, fifth, sixth grades? Does that make sense?
I think that's more so kind of speaking to like the numbers are so much bigger in the lower grades, it just
Yeah.
averages out that way. And so,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
there are, yeah, I think it's just more of an average.
Yeah. I just wanted to make sure that that's where the weight
Mhm.
was coming from.
Mhm.
Okay,
Mhm.
so when I look at it, I semi-panic, right? It looks like we need intervention in math, but as we talk about it more and more, the picture kind of clears up. And so I guess after the November round, we'll really have a better idea of interventions that we might need and where we might need them. So I guess when we revisit this for after the November round, then at that point we can look at those ideas.
Fantastic. No, for sure. So we do need intervention in math, but what's good about it is we've already started. So that's what so the reason why we give that assessment, that interim assessment, is to see where the kids are. We do it at the very beginning of the year so that the teachers can immediately start addressing the gaps. Not only the teachers, but we have SPED department. We also have our interventionists. And so we've been working since day one, filling those gaps. So like we use that data to like start attacking, where we see the deficiencies and then looking at those kids that are already high and try to, meet their needs as well. So we use the data like ongoing. And then we have, we have our data meetings where we're looking at that data and tracking and making decisions based on where kids are currently. So we're not waiting, but yeah. So in November, it'll show us, so this is sort of like navigation, right? So to show us like whether we're being effective. And if we're not, we're like, okay, so let's look at this data again and then course correct. Okay, that's not working. So then let's make some other changes. So what's happened in education, hopefully, right, is that we start looking at data throughout the year, not waiting to the end of the year to see how we failed. We're looking at where do we need to make those adjustments now, and we're making them in the moment. So that's kind of where we are.
Okay. Can you elaborate just a little bit on some of the interventions that we do already use for math?
Absolutely. So anybody can jump in at any point. As a matter of fact, Carla Sanchez, she is our resident expert, by the way. But like we do a lot of things. And so I would say, number one, small group instruction is extremely powerful. I would say, Carla, you can jump in. And what we do there is we pull kids according to the skills that they're missing, and then we plug in those skills. So that's one way. Our interventionists come in and they pull groups as well. And when we pull groups, we're usually pulling groups that have like missing skills or skills that are similar. And so we're either remediating or we're pushing forward. And in Singapore math, we use a lot of hands-on manipulative. So we're building that number sense. Carla, what other interventions do we have? We do Learning Academy every morning. And so where we're pulling those kids that are struggling in math and we're giving them extra instruction for 30 minutes out of the day. Carla, what else? What did I miss?
Yeah, so I'll just kind of elaborate a little on everything that you've already said. So yeah, in class, especially in 5th and 6th grade, because we definitely see the information. So we have been on it since day one, working really hard. We break up all the students according to the data that we have received and into whatever instructional skills that they are behind in or need support in. So based on those, we'll meet daily with a bubble group that is the ones that are closest to reaching that proficiency. And then we have interventionists working with the students who are in that intensive group. So then they can continue to build and basically the building blocks that they are struggling with. So really getting those foundational skills, that support that they need. So when they go to middle school, especially for 5th and 6th grade, that at least they'll have that foundation to be successful later on. And I am proud to say that most of our students, when they go on to middle school, are extremely successful in math. So that is a good thing. If Rhett McIntosh was here, she would definitely confirm that with her own child. But so that is one area. Again, our interventionists are coming in and working with our students daily, with our students who need that intensive support. But also I do want to focus on that not only the students that are in need are getting that support daily, but then also our students who are in the blue and green are given challenge activities as well, and extension activities where they're given projects to work on that are in their level. So we have students, at least in sixth grade, you have a gamut of range where I have students working on slope intercept form all the way to long division. So we're all working on in specific areas of their needs. So we're really trying our best to ensure that everyone's needs are getting met as best as we can. So.
Just to add to what Dr. Renti and Ms. Sanchez already said, we also do spiral review on a daily basis as well, where this is a block where we find another opportunity to hit any missing skills or any gaps that we would have seen. So we would tackle a different gap in spiral review than what we will tackle in small group, than what we will tackle in Learning Academy. And we also focus on something else in the main instructional block as well. So students have multiple entry points and multiple opportunities to hit multiple skills throughout the day. And we haven't started tutoring just yet, but tutoring is also another way where we address those missing skills as well. And tutoring should be up and rolling soon, right after we capture data from this next recent STAR assessment. And something that I want to share with everyone as well, which I don't think you may know, is that the STAR assessment gives you questions based on everything that's on the curriculum. And parents may not know that. So we are only in November, but they're getting tested on things that we plan to teach in January, February, March, April, May, all the way to June. So it kind of like takes all the standards and they give you one or two questions from each standard, even though you haven't covered that particular topic as yet. And part of the reason why it's so difficult to get to that proficiency level in math is because in September, October, November, we haven't covered half of the curriculum for the years yet, but you're still getting those questions on the test, whereby in ELA, you have basically a certain amount of standards, and as you go up the grade levels, you just go deeper within those standards. So the skills kind of somewhat remain the same in ELA. You just dig into it a little bit deeper, as opposed to math. You have all these different topics and all these different content areas, topics, I would say, that you still need to teach the kids. So that's something that I think I should have shared as well, because students will see questions about division or fractions in the September exam, and all they would have learned at that point probably was place value, right? So this is why at the end of the school year, that's the data that is most important to us, because then it would be apples to apples, where everything that they would have learned throughout the year is being tested on that very last assessment. So now they have a fair shot at answering every single question, because at that point they would have covered all the topics that they needed to cover that will definitely come on the assessment.
Awesome. Thank you to the three of you for that.
You're most welcome.
I
Mr.
just want to say,
sorry,
I just want to say for those teachers in the room, like if you teach school, like, you know, like our like approach to mitigating those gaps is like pretty comprehensive. I mean, I don't see it in a lot of places, right? So just wanted to throw that out there. What were you going to say, Carla?
Oh, just adding that during Learning Academy, that students are really polled again based on whatever their needs are, and then the other students are having again different areas of work, and we work on different the different technology that we have for students to work on for math, especially in MobiMax and IXL, that teachers are using these programs and specifically assigning individual needs for each student. So I just want like everyone to know that even for what one student needs, every single student the teacher has gone through to assign specific needs for every student they have. Just to make sure that they're not just working on something that they don't need. So.
Perfect. Okay. Mr. Finley, if I could just make a request for next time, if we could get a small blurb, and it could just be school-wide also, but if we could get a small slideshow of how it breaks down per demographic area. So like EL students, African-American students, Hispanic students, white students, things like that.
Yeah, we can definitely do that for you. The test doesn't give you the results that way, but we manually pull together the data. So depending on when the next meeting is, I think we should have enough time to rip it apart. It takes about a week to get that specific with the data, but we'll try our best to have it for you for the next meeting. And if not, we'll let you know. We'll definitely have it for the one after that.
Okay. I apologize in advance. I do that for my work, and I know how tedious it can be to manually disaggregate that data. So,
But
okay,
we
so
will have that data for SBAC though. That is part of the SBAC breakdown. And it's already done for us, just FYI. So like before the year is out, we will present that data like school-wide for sure.
perfect.
Mhm.
Okay, so item 6.2, we're postponing until our next meeting. So I'm sorry, I'm waiting for Ms. Sanchez to. Yes. Okay, so for item 7.1, did everybody get a chance to review the previous meeting minutes? Are there any comments on it? Any notes that we should note? Any changes? Okay, so then let's go ahead and if I can get a motion to approve them, please.
I'll motion to approve.
I second.
Thank you. Was that Jennifer Grove for the second?
No, it was Rachel.
Okay, thank you. All right, so let's go ahead and vote on it. Mr. Finley, do you vote to approve? A, nay?
Yes, I.
Thank you. Rachel?
Aye.
Thank you. Ms. Hoganson?
Aye.
Mr. Acevedo?
Aye.
Thank you. Ms. Sanchez?
Aye.
Thank you. John is absent. Ms. Grove?
Aye.
Ms. Hamilton?
Aye.
Thank you. Ms. McIntosh is out, correct? She's absent today. Thank you. And then I vote aye. So the motion carries. We've approved the minutes from the September meeting. Now, okay. Item 8.1. So I was hoping we'd have more members here, but we do have quorum, so I think we can proceed, but I'm not sure how you guys feel about this. So one of the main points that I want to address, and I want to address it as soon as possible, is the fact that of our parent members, we want to have alternating years when we have, well, we want to have elections every year and have alternating number of members be voted on every year. So 1 year, no, we're not. That looks awesome. Put it down and I'll go look at it now. I'm sorry. So for example, 1 year we want to vote out or vote for 3 of the members, and then the next year the other 2. We've also talked about potentially having a 6-month to a 1-year period in between that where we're training the new members, the incoming members. So just as an example, let's say that I don't get reelected the next time, then I would stay on for another 6 months and train the new chair of the school site council. That being said, this was a point that we mentioned briefly when we first formed our bylaws, but we never finalized it. And I think we need to finalize it as soon as possible so that we could let parents know who, I know there are other parents who are interested in possibly running the next round. So Ms. Sanchez, can we open the bylaws and look at them?
Delphina, wasn't there a list of, I don't know if there were some questions that we needed to get answered? I feel like there had been some questions we had we didn't quite know the answers to before. And it was surrounding this point.
Do you think it was during the September meeting?
Yes, I feel like we had some questions about that, but I'm not 100% sure.
I'm looking through the September minutes right now to see if I can find that. So one of the questions we had was, if reelected, would the term start over? And that was from Ms. Hawkinson. Do you want to elaborate a little bit on what you meant on that one?
Oh, I mean, that's not kind of, I don't know. That's not super specific. I'm trying to remember exactly what I was referencing. I think it had to do with officers.
Okay, I think it was how I was mentioning that we would stay on a little bit extra for that transitionary period. But if, oh no, I think this was if the members that volunteered to have their positions voted on this year and they won that reelection. So let's say that, let's say I volunteered to step down or to at least run again and have my position be voted on. If I won the reelection, would my 2 years start now, or would I just complete my 2 years? If that makes any sense.
I don't think so, only because then if you're reelected, that would start your, otherwise there's no sense in having a reelection now, because then
Right.
everybody would again be, I think it had to do something with, and I apologize because I don't remember specifically, but I think it was in regards to the officers, like if you're reelected, or if you're, were we going to have a certain amount of time that officers were going to be in place for? Like we had said, we don't want to have a new president necessarily every single year unless there's a problem, because that just makes it a little bit more unstable. So how could we handle that part? Does that make sense?
It does to me. I would like the other members to weigh in too, though.
Hey, Delphino, Dr. N.T., can you explain to me the question you had with regards to the term starting once you're reelected? I didn't I might have missed part of that. What were you referring to?
I think we're trying to understand the question, Dr. Renti, to be completely honest. So I guess what we're suggesting is that if one of the officer positions does not win the election and gets replaced, that position, that officer would still stay on for a little bit extra just to help the transition and train the new person. But if they do get reelected, honestly, I don't know. Because I know
so
we
they
mentioned,
normally, so like on our board, for instance, they would still finish their term, which the term usually follows the fiscal year, that's the school year. And so the term normally would end like June 30th. And then the new term would start, July 1st or August 1st.
Yeah.
So that they would still finish that term regardless. And then if they
Okay.
stayed on another 6 months for a transition, which I think is a really good idea, actually, for training purposes, then, then it would be, August
6
through
months.
December, January, whatever. That's normally what we do. And so like the reset date is usually everything ends on the 30th of June and everything starts afresh July 1st. Does that make sense? Does that help?
Yes, that does make sense.
I mean, that's what we normally do.
Right.
So the other question we had, and I think it's self-explanatory, I think that's what Ms. Hawkinson was saying, was of the positions that are going to volunteer to be up this year, right? So I believe, was it Jennifer Grove? I'm sorry, I'm trying to go through.
It is. It was me.
You volunteered to run this year, right?
Yes,
And so to have your seat up for grabs.
correct.
So we were wondering, because she's supposed to, well, I guess that's self-explanatory. She would have, if she won the seat again, her 2 years would start in August, like Dr. Renti just said. So she would go 2 years from now. So she would have initially a 3-year stretch.
Got it. Because you do want to stagger the terms for sure,
Yeah,
right?
that's what we're trying to do.
Yep.
I'm trying to think who else had volunteered. But
I
don't think.
had volunteered as a teacher to go ahead and rerun. That way there's at least one teacher. And I think we said we were going to do 2 parents and 1 teacher, and then 2 teachers and the other 2 parents.
Okay,
Is that how it?
yeah,
But if our terms, our second year is this year, if it's up this year, then anyone who doesn't run, I'm just trying to understand, like, wouldn't we all be up for reelection right now? Unless we rerun as this year, like it wouldn't be they finish out this term just for this one cycle, so that we could get everybody on a every other year cycle. Does that make sense, Dr. Renty?
That's a yes. So what you would do is everyone would be up for reelection. You would decide which seats are going to be a 2-year term, a 3-year term, a 1-year term. So you're going to stagger. And so if everyone runs again, but their terms would be up, on in another year. So one group of people, their term is up in a year. Another group, their term is up in 2 years, and however you want to stagger it. So it would make more sense to do everyone run, everyone get reelected, but with different endings to their term.
so just for example, like the chair would be a 2-year position, but a non-officer position would be a 1-year term.
You
Something
can.
like that.
You
I
can.
mean, that's not
You can.
specifically that, but something like that. Okay,
Yeah,
that
you
makes
can.
sense.
And right. And then you take, so for instance, if you have a treasurer, I don't know who your officers are, but you kind of want to stagger them. So maybe the treasurer, they run again for another 1-year term, or however you want to do it, 2-year and 3-year, however you guys want to do it. But you want to make sure all of your heavy hitters and your officers are not all expiring in the same year.
Oh,
So
okay,
that you want to stagger. You definitely want to stagger that. Yeah.
okay.
So
So then,
since we didn't, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
Oh, so since we didn't set it up, I mean, because we talked about it last year, but never set it up this way. So I think we're all 2-year terms right now. So we all technically must go through the election process again for next year, but then whoever gets elected next year, we could set up those terms now. We could make decisions now about what those terms are going to look like. So going forward, they're staggered. Is that correct?
100%. You want to add that to your bylaws, what those terms are going to look like: a 1-year, 2-year, 3-year. Make sure they're staggered, so you always have seasoned members on the board and on the committee. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense to me.
Thank you. So then, Delphino, I think what we need to do as a group, if we're all going to need to be reelected, maybe we add to the bylaw, we figure out those positions, like how long each of them are going to be, make sure they're staggered. I don't know if we could, did we say we wanted to do like 3 and 2 years, so that some of them are a little bit longer, like the board president, for example?
I mean, I would think that's a good idea. And so
Yes,
I guess
that's
we're
a good
all,
idea.
Dr. Renty, are we all then finishing out the initial 2-year term that we agreed to? Or should we just have elections again this year, at the end of this year for the beginning of next year? So that we can start those terms in August fresh.
Right. So what I'm understanding is everyone ran for a 2-year term. That 2-year term is up at the end of this school year, correct?
No, it's actually up at the end of next school year. So this is yeah, no, you're right. I'm sorry, you're right. This is the end of our second year.
So end of your second year. And so then, yes, so the recommendation would be like starting maybe May. You don't have to do them all on the same night, or however you want to do it. May, June, you're having a re-election for those positions. And when you then run again, you'll already have voted in your bylaws where you have the staggered terms. And then it'll be a 2-year, 3-year based on the positions and whatever the board decides or the committee decides. So yes, so I think I answered your question. So that would be finish this year up and then open up those elections. And you do have to open it up to the public, saying, these are the positions that are up. And y'all can decide to run again, but also other people can decide to oppose you, right? To run for your seat as well. You put it up for a vote, and then the re-election would be based on, and the terms would be based on whatever the board sets up in the bylaws. And
Dr.
that way
Renteria?
going forward, you have that staggering, which is preferred. What was
Okay.
that? Mhm.
I apologize. I didn't mean to interrupt.
That's
I
okay.
did have a question about that. Can we go ahead and now add to the bylaws something about, for example, so Delfino's role is up for reelection. If he doesn't get reelected, are we, and and hopefully he does, right? I think you're doing a great job.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
if he doesn't get reelected, can we put in the bylaws now that he stays on for that 6 months to help transition?
Yeah, I think,
Or would,
yeah. Mhm.
yes,
You can
okay.
put in the, yep, whatever you guys agree on. Yeah. Because you don't want all your intellectual capital to walk out the door at the same time. So what you're doing is saying we want a seasoned board always in place, and this is how we're going to make sure we're taking care of the committee. And so,
Exactly.
yeah, the council, yeah, you can do that. Mhm.
Okay, so that's why we put it on as an action item tonight.
Okay.
So let's start proposing some of these changes and see if we can get on there. I am in section B, term of office.
So I would say that we would have the board president be 3 years. And maybe do like vice president 2 years and think about having the secretary also be 3 years. So we have like only 2 board members moving at a, 2 or 1, not all 3 of the same year, but
Yep.
that they both,
That's good. Mhm.
That sounds good to me. Before we do anything though, we do have to take a vote on it, correct? So is there a way to mark it in the bylaws as a suggestion before we finalize it?
What about their general like parent? Because how many parents do we have other than officers? We have Carla as the secretary, and then we have 2 parents as the president and vice president, and we have 2 other parents. Is that correct?
We have 3, so we should have 5 parents.
5 parents. Okay. So would we want, and I can't remember, was there a specific anything in our bylaws about how, who is what type of position, that it needs to be parents that are president and vice president, or a teacher that's a secretary? Like, was that even, or was just, hey, I volunteer?
Well, let me see. Under Article 2, it says the school site council shall be composed of 10 members selected by their peers as follows: 3 classroom teachers, 2 other school staff members, excuse me, 5 parents or community members. The school principal shall be an ex officio member of the school site council. School site members chosen to represent parents may be employees of the school district so long as they are not employed at this school. So that's taken straight out of the California Department of Ed. It doesn't specify that it has to be a parent, be a chair, but I think it might be nice to specify that.
I would prefer that we have, yes, a parent be the chair makes a lot of sense to me, and that be the that be a 3-year term.
So, oh, that is
So we're
that
not
me?
getting anyone else jumping in.
I know. I'm trying to see here what I could do, maybe some strike throughs or something. But I guess we would have to, under terms of office, we'll make it specific to each position, right? So we could write something like the school site council chair shall be a parent member
And elected for a 3-year term.
yeah, who will be elected to serve a 3-year term. So my only question with this is, if we elect it for 3 years, right, and we elect the vice chair for 2 years, at some point, are they going to catch up to each other?
Yes.
So
Yeah,
I
they'll
don't,
eventually they'll have the same year that they will have elections.
is that okay?
Is there a possibility for us to allow a parent, like everyone, to run this year and then allow a parent to only serve 1 year, just so that we start to stagger. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, see, I think that's where we originally said at terms will be for 2 years, but there'll be elections on alternating years.
So like the chair and the vice chair should both be 3-year terms but there has to be a way that we can set that so that they are staggered, so that they never
Yes.
have the same. So there has to be a way for us to write that in there, that they can, that, one can elect to.
So we can say on odd
Re-election.
numbered years, right?
Yeah, you know what, that works.
What's-
On odd number year, even years, odd years, president, vice chair.
So that, well,
Well, could we say that for the 2022-2023 school year, the vice chair will be a one-year term, and then thereafter will be a 3-year term? And that
Yeah.
way, then there would be then the chair would be up for reelection, and then the next year the vice chair, and then 3 years later, 2 years later after that, the chair, a year later the vice chair, so that those are always staggered from that point forward. So we can just say for that 1 year that it is a
Yes.
1-year term. I appreciate that chiming in, because I wouldn't even thought about the fact that, yes, that will definitely make it eventually, there will be multiple years where they're both at the same time if we do a 2- and 3-year term.
Correct.
Do we want to say that the vice chair is also a parent? I mean, I think that it
Oh.
doesn't matter so much for the secretary to whether it's a parent or a teacher, but we could say, chair and vice chair are parents, and then from that point, it's just whoever wants to be the secretary, or do we want a teacher to be the secretary?
So my only concern with it not being a staff member, not necessarily a teacher, but a staff member, is that this person is going to need access to a computer, even if we go off of Zoom, but for typing up notes and things like that, and sending out reminder emails or whatever. And I think that that's a burden that we would put on the school to provide. And it's easier to provide it to a staff member than it would be to a parent.
So we would say that the secretary, what we could do is that for the 2022-2023 election,
Mhm.
the secretary position is a 2-year position. So now we have it, the chair, then the vice chair, then the next year the secretary, and all 3 are 3-year positions, with the secretary being a staff member. So it could be either teacher or non-teacher staff.
Okay. So I'm
Employee
sorry, 'cause-
of reach, maybe, because I don't know if staff member is specifically delineated as like non-teacher. So
Okay. So so for the 2022-2023 school year, the position will serve a 1-year term. That's for the vice chair, correct?
right.
And now we're talking about the secretary.
Do you want me to type, Delphino?
Oh, either way, I think this is how I think, so it helps me. But if you would
Okay.
like to,
I'll
Go right
I'll
ahead.
keep taking notes and
okay.
you do this.
Yeah, maybe you should have Carla, maybe Miss Sanchez type, since she's the secretary.
Go for it.
Just a thought, yeah.
But she
I
does
didn't
also.
want to intrude. You're doing a great job. So
I'm not, but thank you. No, go ahead, Carla. Go ahead. So we were just going to write there that the school site council secretary will be a staff member or a school employee, right? I believe was a term. Who will be elected to serve a 3-year term.
And then that's also elected for a 3-year term, but only for the 22-23 year.
And then
It's a
put
2-year term.
yeah, for the 2022 through 2024 school years. This position will serve a 2-year term. That way, in 2024, we'll be voting for a chair and a new secretary. And in 2023, we'll be voting for a vice chair.
Wait, no, it'll be, if it's a 3-year term, then in 1 year we'll vote for the vice chair, in 2 years we'll vote for the secretary, and 3 years we'll vote for the chair again,
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm thinking 2021, but we'll be voting in 2022 for the chair.
right? And then for the rest of the positions,
Mhm.
do we want to do something similar where we say half of the positions are, or half of the parent positions and half of the teacher positions and staff positions are, you know, maybe they're all 2-year terms, but half of them are 1-year terms for just this next school year. And then they're all staggered as well.
Yes.
Half of the parent members, is that what I should put?
I think of all positions, we're saying of the remaining positions. So I guess, Ms. Sanchez, the best way to put it would be for the 2022, 2023 school year, half of the positions will be will serve a 1-year term. And then after that, each position will serve a 2-year term.
And maybe we simply just, when we do the election, we specify like, okay, this is, I don't know, like, would we have that delineated for the election itself? So maybe like a 5th grade parent would be interested in serving for 1 year, or would we just say that'll be determined after election?
I think it would be a good idea to state it ahead of time and let parents decide if they want to run for a 1 year or a 2-year term for this next year.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
So I have a quick question.
Yes.
So currently I'm vice chair. So we're all up for election at the end of this year, the 2021-2022 year.
Mhm.
So if I run again, and let's say by chance I get vice chair again, then I'll be vice chair for 1 year and then be up for re-election again.
Yes.
Okay. So would it just be better to
Did you
do?
have a question about that, Jennifer? So what was
Yeah,
the
so
question?
I'm
What were you
saying, so
thinking?
it would
That
be,
if she would be like back to back, is that what you're thinking?
yeah, so I would serve the end of this year and then serve for, if I elect again, serve 1 more year and then go election again, and then it would be 3 years.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
You can also move to a different position, right, and just be a board member and not an officer. Or you could take the chair also.
And then I didn't hear the staggering for the chair position. Was that going to be 2 years in the run again or 3 years in the run again? So at the end of this term, it's a 3-year, okay. And then what was the reason for making the vice chair 1 and then run again? I missed that because it seems like they're gonna still fall on the same year as needing to be.
We're trying to
I think
stagger them.
The terms,
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
That's okay.
We had originally said 2 years, but then we realized that in 3 years or in 3 terms, they would catch up to each other. And then we'd have both positions running on the same year again. And we're trying to avoid that. And we're not 100% sure how to do it.
Yeah, I don't know that that's going to be possible. I think maybe there's something in the provision that just, you know, in the event that they both fall in the same year, then, you know, you can stagger at that point. I think, I don't know that Jennifer didn't fully ask the question, but I think that to run this year and then have to run again seems kind of daunting.
Well,
as opposed to, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, because someone mentioned that, you know, running opposite years for the actual number of the year which makes sense to me if I am up this year and say I'm up for 2021, 2022, technically it's 2022 election, then next year it would be the chair position, could be possibly, and that'll be an odd year. So then it could be even year vice chair, odd year chair. That just, I don't know.
Oh,
Maybe.
got it. Okay, that makes sense. Mhm.
I don't know. I'm just saying it made sense when the person said it, but then it would kind of like backtrack to this like weird 1 year,
And
then 3
after
year.
that, it would be 3
Yeah.
years thereafter. And then for secretary, they would run again next year, but then after that, it would be 3 years. So then the next year after that, we would have the they would be staggered, all three officer positions. We would have every year a different officer switching, not necessarily
I think
switching, but per election.
So I think I missed part of it. So what we do on the school side is it's either a 2-year term or a 3-year term. That's it. So whatever you stipulate by the end of this year, that's what it is. So if it's a 2-year term, then they go in 2 years. So if it's 2 years, it's 2. So if they were to turn around and have to go through reelection the second year, then that wouldn't be 2 years technically, right? So I mean, it's what so you would. I mean, obviously, you can write the bylaws. You can say 1 year and then add 2 years or 3 years onto that. I mean, you can do anything you want at this point, but it just seems cleaner to
Yeah, I get what you're
just
saying,
stipulate
Dr.
whatever
Renzi.
it is. Just stipulate it and then just do it. And then when they fall on the same year, you vote to do something, right? To postpone one or something. What were you going to say? Mhm.
No, that's a good solution. I'm okay with that.
Could it
Mhm.
be that if they fall on the same year, that if the chair is up for reelection or they don't get reelected or in that year, that the vice chair will become like step in and become chair, so that it's like a continuation of, you know what I'm saying? Of
Yeah. Well, that
of
was
the
my
board.
other concern too, right? Is that if we're always running on opposite years, what opportunity is there for the vice chair to assume the position of chair if it's a year that that position isn't running? You know what I mean? I don't know how that would work. So let's say that it's a year that I'm up for reelection, but Jennifer isn't, but she wants to assume the position of chair. Can she run and then we have a special election for her vacant seat? Is that how that would work?
Yes.
Well, I know I think Delfino's really good as chair. I wouldn't want to take his position, but
No, but
I'm just thinking like to do pretty much 3 elections
back to back to
and
back.
yeah, it's like kind of crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not about ego. Don't worry. I'm not like hoping that you're gonna or like hoping you don't gun for my position or anything like that. It's not about ego. It might actually have a very good purpose, and I might have other situations in life that are
Right.
complicated. And so if you've been by my side this whole time, then that would make sense that you step in. So it's not about ego at all. But I mean, I want that opportunity to be there. But Dr. Renzi said, yeah, it's as simple as having a special election. So then I agree. I think it's cleaner to say that the chair is a 3-year position or 3-year term, that the vice chair is a 2-year term, the secretary is also a 3-year term. And if they ever all fall at the same time, we hold a meeting and we take a vote to simply pause one of those elections of that year.
No,
If
it
that
makes
makes
sense.
sense.
Well said. Yeah. Mhm.
Okay.
Sorry, can you repeat it? Like slow it
No,
down just a
Carla,
little for
no.
me?
No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so we're gonna simplify it. The chair will serve, which shall be a parent member who will be elected to serve a 3-year term. The vice chair shall be a parent member who will be elected to serve a 2-year term. And we can delete everything after term. And then the secretary will be a reach employee who will be elected to serve a 3-year term. And we delete that. And as for everybody else, I still think that makes sense that to say that they will be voted into 2-year terms on alternating years. Does that make sense?
Sounds good.
Okay, and so for them, see, now we're back in the same situation now. in order to offset that, how do we do that? Again, do we just vote and say, okay, for these 3 positions, we're going to pause it this year and we'll vote on their positions next year? Right, the same way we would handle it with
You can.
officers.
Yeah.
Okay, I said
I mean,
let's
the
just do
board
that.
can- mhm.
So yeah, so then we'll say yes. Go, Carla.
You tell me.
No, you do. Okay, so
What about if deemed necessary by the board to offset elections for officers and or parents? A special meeting can be held or a special vote can be held to, I don't know,
Yeah.
something along those.
That's good. Mhm.
Yep.
Can you say it again? Sorry.
No.
I was trying to piece it together in my head. I was like,
So if deemed necessary by the board to offset elections to maintain board integrity, special election can be. I can't finish it out, but
yeah, no,
Would be
that's
held.
to
Yeah.
maintain
it's something
board
along those.
integrity.
Would we want to go ahead and say that, you know, maybe if there's some, like, if there's people that would volunteer this year, that their term would be, or do we want, like, we'd say, okay, like, okay, you know, these people are going to have an additional year added that in order to stagger elections for the remaining members.
I think that kind of muddies up the water, but this terminology will allow you to put that as an action on your on a future board meeting, and then we can make that would be your necessary election to offset it or to maintain integrity.
Yep.
Yeah.
Only because that means that if we have a re-election this year of all of us, then next year we could potentially have a completely new board.
Right, but putting that that if it's deemed necessary by the board, and then in our future meeting, we will put it as an action, and then we will deem it necessary to offset those elections. So it doesn't need to be in the bylaws. It just needs to be something that the board has the ability to be able to do should something along those lines happen. And then that will be our action step as a board. It doesn't have to do with our bylaws. It has to do with what action we are taking this year in a future meeting.
That makes sense.
Yes. Okay, so I added a little bit, but the remaining positions will serve a 2-year term on alternating years. And then we have the if deemed necessary by the board to offset elections to maintain board integrity, a special election will be held. I think we're good. I think that makes sense. It's getting
Yep.
a little later. And I think that was the last thing we really needed to button up on here. Okay, any other questions?
Real quick, Delfino, do we want to say in there that elections can be also postponed? That like that's what she's saying, that we could postpone.
Yes.
So maybe on a future board meeting this year, we say, okay, XYZ, your position is that election is going to be postponed to 1 more year.
Wouldn't that be offset?
Yes.
Right, so,
You could offset, you
think
can
the
offset
language
as
covers-
this year or next year.
right, but that one saying a special election will be held, we could say, or elections could be postponed.
Special
Right.
election could mean that it's half of the positions are up for election and half of them are staying.
Okay, so what about that sentence now? If deemed necessary by the board to offset elections to maintain board integrity, a special election can be held or postponed.
I agree.
Does that seem okay?
Yes.
Okay, so then we can really get rid of most of the next line. Half or the nearest approximate thereof of each representative group shall be elected during odd years, the remaining during even years. Right. Now, I don't think anything else right now needs to be addressed. We did talk about having to talk about needing to terminate a member, but we said we would cross that bridge when we got there, and we're not there yet. So I think that's it. So if we go back to tonight's agenda. In 8.1, can we have a motion then to approve the revisions to the bylaws? Am I allowed to say it that way?
I motion to approve.
Thank you, Ms. Hoganson.
Jennifer Grobe, I'll second.
Thank you, Jennifer. Now we will take a vote on that. Mr. Finley, are you still available?
Yes.
Okay.
Aye.
So are you okay with, okay, sorry. Yes, you said aye.
Yes.
So I think that I think the secretary does a roll call. Yeah, no?
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Finley, you say aye.
Aye, 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 aye.
Aye, aye, aye. Rachel Staylor,
Aye.
Aye.
Vive Hokinson, Aldeno Segueda,
Aye.
myself, Carlos Sanchez, aye. John Kearney is absent. Jennifer Grobe,
Aye.
Jennifer Hamilton,
Aye.
Brett McIntosh is absent. Delfino Murillo.
Aye.
Okay. So we have 8 ayes, 2 absent, so the motion carries. That's it.
Okay. All right. Section 9. Do we have any comments from any of the board members today? Okay,
Is-
oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, is this for to look at adding future items? Future business or no?
Oh, I think we could.
I just have a quick question, kind of back to our STAR testing. I believe at one point there were classes available to parents to assist them in learning the way to help their child at home with homework, such as, especially with math, because math is very different from when I as a parent was around. And if I'm not mistaken, that was something like years back. But maybe looking at seeing what we can do to have that reinstated, especially with the numbers that we're seeing in our upper grade. I know that me personally, I had a little issue where I had to literally tell my son, okay, step away from your math for a little bit. And I had to Google and YouTube and, a couple things before I could break down what he was doing, figure it out myself, and then figure out how to teach it to him. But if we had that little bit of steps that a math teacher can give us saying, hey, this is how you help your son or your daughter, that could help us in helping our children. But that would be something that I don't know, that we could look at in the future, maybe add it as a possibility.
Awesome.
Yes, 100%.
Okay. I just wanted to thank Dr. Renti and Mr. Finley and Marilyn for being with us tonight for that presentation. I also wanted to look in the future about creating maybe some kind of committee where we gather information from all the teachers. I want to get a better idea for how we can support parents at home, especially the parents that don't attend the APAC had a pizza and reading event last month that was super fun to be at. But parents who don't attend that, or they don't attend the ELAC committees or these meetings, how we can support them at home. So I think the person with the best idea of what's happening in the home would be the teacher when they talk, with them at parent conferences and whatnot. And so I want to see how we can get that information to us so that we can design or look into research some interventions that would be more appropriate for, for those parents. So hopefully in the next couple of meetings, we'll be able to talk about that. Okay, with that, if there's no other comments. Okay, then can we have somebody motion to adjourn this meeting?
Jennifer Grove, I motion to adjourn.
Thank you. And if I can have somebody second it,
I second it.
I saw Ms. Hamilton do that one. Okay. So, I'm trying to look up the date of the next one. I'm sorry. For the next one, I have January 20th. That's the next one I have. That, might change depending on other calendars and the needs of the school, but it looks like that's our next one, okay? With that being said, our meeting is adjourned. I have 7:26. And everybody have a good night. Thank you guys for sticking out this long one.
Have a good
Yeah.
night.
Thank
You
you.
too.
Night,
Thank you.
everyone.
Everyone have a good night.